once you look at their infrasternal angle, it's like, what do you do after that? First, it's always the infrasternal angle. So you want to see, checking the infrasternal angle and looking at it that way, you want to see that as your foundation. From a training standpoint, that is going to help. Like I wouldn't say this to Zach, like I wouldn't use core stability because that's not the technical term. There's no really such thing as core stability. But for the client, core stability is a thing. Especially if you're going to work, because a lot of you like the post-rehab people. The story is the same. I can't engage my core. I have issues engaging my core. And most people have gone to many PTs, many trainers, many Pilates places. And the problem is always, I cannot engage this. So getting to the ISA, if you're trying to get a client to like, why are you checking this? It's to get you abs, to get you core stability. And then from your standpoint in a training, it's going to allow them to keep this canister, allow them to bring some awareness to this area and build some stiffness instead of them arching their back or rounding and being able to do things doing things incorrectly. So number one is ISA foundation. So you check that first. From there is, are they wide? Or are they narrow? So if they are wide, what kind of exhale do they need?
Forceful.
Well, let's change that. So, not that you're wrong, not that I was wrong, but now we kind of changed it. Sometimes I do say forceful, if they keep going, I'm like, no, a little harder. And they don't do that, I'm like, purse your lips, forceful exhale. That's when I use forceful, but I'm getting away from that because what's happening is and then they block the air from coming out. You don't want that. So pursed lips, full exhalation seems to be a little better. If they're keeping going, then that's when you can say forceful exhale, but I would start more, what I told you with David today, is pursed lips, full exhalation. So when someone is wide, it is pursed lips, full exhale. What about the arms?
Overhead.
Overhead with arms. Why? What does that get?
Internal obliques.
Other ones.
External obliques.
External obliques. So the external obliques bring the rib cage in. And someone in a wide, their rib cage is wider from medial to lateral. So from front to back, they're squished in and they're wide. So the external obliques brings them and narrows them down a little bit. Why the arms overhead? What do muscle spindles do?
Sense stretch.
So if we stretch, and then what do they? So when they sense stretch, what happens? It contracts. If we're trying to contract external obliques and we put them even more of a stretch, then we're going to use that reflex to contract and concentrically contract the external obliques. And when we do that, we narrow people. So arms overhead, pursed lips. If they're narrow, what kind of exhale is that?
Soft.
Yeah, so that stays the same. Open mouth, fog, prolong exhale. So fog, open mouth. And then arms. A horizontal reach. If these people, the wide people, are very big or wide from medial to lateral, do you think the narrows are big from medial to lateral or posterior to anterior?
Posterior to anterior.
Yeah. And then so if external obliques does that, what do you think wides have too much of?
Internal.
Or narrow, sorry. Yeah.
Internal.
So external on the narrow.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right. So external on the narrow, so we don't want that forceful exhale because that's going to help engage external obliques. We want more internal transverse, and getting that nice prolonged fog will help with that. And then the goal for both of them after you get the exhale is an inhalation without losing it. So after that, the goal is inhale without losing position. So both of them need that. Can someone tell me why?
Keeps their abs engaged.
Yeah, you'll use the abs to keep position, but it just doesn't take them back to that pattern because you get them all from a state of exhalation. And when it comes to a breathing standpoint, you're trying to maximize how your diaphragm breathes for you. So in order for you to breathe with your diaphragm, even though we don't really say that, it needs to come from a state of full exhalation. So that's what you're doing here. But then in order for you to breathe in with your diaphragm, you don't want to lose it because you want that 360 expansion. So that's why you want to keep position. Because if you keep position, you're more likely to get that 360 expansion instead of just here. But you got to get this first before you even go here. And with a person, it might be like a couple sessions later, or even not even sessions, maybe a couple months later, to where you're really nailing this down, even though you can still move on after that, but first get to the exhale. And don't get caught up on trying to do it day one. Like people are not gonna do it day one. You don't wanna overwhelm them. Unless they can take cues and it's good to overwhelm them. It's like a there's two ways to overwhelm people. The people who can take it at the end, they're like, oh my gosh, that was too much. Or the people who get frustrated and they're like, I don't even know what you want me to do. Like with those people, it's like, just get here and then later on get to this. People who can take it, it's like definitely throw a bunch of things at them and make a joke out of it. So once you get that, you are kind of already doing that. You've been doing that for a while. And then now what you do? Now we check this. This is what we're gonna focus on now, is because you have been doing this. Most people are narrow anyways, except for David. Now we're gonna start checking this to see where else we need to drive air to. Because that's gonna help you move throughout the training floor, or help your clients move throughout the training floor. In order for you to move your arm overhead, you need to fill up the front of your chest. In order for you to move your chest away at the end of the push-up, you need to fill up air to the back of your chest. If you can't pressurize and get air into certain parts of your rib cage, you're gonna be limited by how you move. If you can't get air here, and your shoulder is this way, which we're gonna talk about here in a second, and I ask you to row, this is what it's gonna look like. If you're already here and you can't get air into the back, I'm gonna ask you to row, and it's gonna look like this. So same problem, but it might be a different solution. So being able to do this, you can really pinpoint where to go to. So once you got an inhale without coming up, or you can also say silent inhale, then you can ask yourself, we're gonna go up here. Can they IR the shoulder? Table, check this. Can they internally rotate the shoulder? If the answer is no, a couple things are happening. All right, let's see if I can explain this. If the answer is no, they can't get air into their chest up here. So pump handle, the sternum is down. So that means the shoulder blade, right here, will go on this side. The shoulder blade is abducted away from the scapula and internally rotated. So you probably did not learn internal and external rotation of the scapula. You probably just learned this. Okay. Internal and external rotation, these are the scapulas. This right here. Internal rotation, the inside border goes out. External rotation, the outside border goes out. That's how you can remember it. So the scapula definitely rotate. Abduction and adduction, that's kind of easy. Adduction towards the scapula, the spine, and an abduction away, just like abduction, adduction. The rotation is a little harder. So internal rotation, and then external rotation. If they can't internally rotate the shoulder, then they are abducted and internal rotation, which concentrically orients the front. And I'll show you that in a second. Right side, abduction, internal rotation. Can you see how this concentrically orients? But I can't live life like this, so I compensate in the humerus and I externally rotate so I can do my life. So if external rotation from the shoulder, the humerus, is tight, what can't I do?
Internally rotate.
Internally rotate. So abducted and then internally rotated, but I can't live my life here, so I have to compensatorily externally rotate and get that tight. But now I'm going to have that limitation and I can't internally rotate my shoulder. Which you don't really have to know that right now. All you have to know is like where to get air. This even took me a little while, so it's fine if you can't picture it right away. So concentrically orients the front, boom, can't get air here. So then I compensate and I externally rotate ER to live life. So if you can't get air here, what do you do if someone can't internally rotate? Where do you try to drive air?
To the upper chest.
To the upper chest, which arms overhead. That's how you do it. So the fix is arms overhead or wide. So maybe, let's say they're narrow, you just get them a little wider. Because when you're doing this and when you're doing the pec squeeze, you are going to block air from coming in here, but that's fine because you're just still building the foundation. Then you can move on to this. If you move on to this too fast, it's too many cues, they're going to lose their abs, they can't keep this down, and if they can't keep this down as the inhale, you're not going to get air here, they're just going to arch their back. So you move the arms overhead, and then you get air, get air in the front, aka top handle up. This is down, where this is restricted. So that should help restore internal rotation. So you go right there. Then you move on to the next question. So can they internally rotate? Yes, they can. And then can they externally rotate the shoulder? That's back here. So first you check this, and then you check this. Can they externally rotate? What do you think is happening there? It's going to be the opposite.
Need to get air to their back.
Which is like the opposite of what you would think. Like, oh, I can't externally rotate. Let me stretch.
Yeah.
So let's say that, yeah, they cannot externally rotate. So what's happening there is shoulder blades are adducted, or this, if it's just one side, adducted and then externally rotated. So they can't get air here.
Oh.
So adducted, externally rotated. You can tell, now I'm restricted in the back. It's very obvious I can't get air there, but I can't live life this way, so I will compensate and internally rotate. So now this gets tight. Now I'm not going to be able to externally rotate. So you got adducted and externally rotated scapula. Which is also concentrically orient things in the back. And then you have to IR humerus to live, which now, where do the arms go?
Horizontal. Horizontal.
Yep, to get air back there. So arms forward. Forward to get air in the posterior thorax. And that's it.
Cool.
So that's your little hierarchy. It's infrasternal angle to get that foundation, get them on the cues, get this moving a little better. I know I've talked about 90 as a goal. You are shooting for 90, but I've gotten away from trying to get 90. What you're doing more with the measurement of wide or narrow is just guiding you with what kind of breathing they're doing, because it tells you what muscles have leverage and what muscles do not. And then it's making sure that all these other limitations are not structural because of the position of the diaphragm. And once you've gotten this down, once you've gotten an inhale or a silent inhale, then you can start manipulating everything else. So the hierarchy is internal first, then external. So we're gonna go over that, and then we're gonna start talking about abduction, because that would also be different. So let's say I had someone who was narrow, got them to fog, got them to do a horizontal reach. We nailed down the breathing a little bit, so they're pretty good at that. And then with the arms, they could internally rotate on the left, but not on the right. So left side was ER was limited, the IR was totally fine. And on the right, ER was fine, the IR was limited. I'm laying on my back. What's the arm position there?
Your left should be straight and your right should be overhead.
Perfect. There you go. So it's like, you don't have to know the anatomy right away. All you have to know is the hierarchy. How's that?
Makes
You got
sense.
it?
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
Cool. So really just manipulating air, and then you can also, that's why I've been adding, and I'll have you all play with this a little bit, especially for my people like Josh, when he's doing his overhead pressing, landmine press, just regular pressing on the ground, he's not really even focusing on respiration or like keeping a zone as he presses. He's just really trying to build muscle and building strength. So there, I really don't care what he's doing, as long as it looks good and doesn't hurt. So what I've been doing is I've been adding upper body lifts to the warm-up. So if someone has limitation of internal rotation, I'm trying to get this to fill up. I've been putting people on an incline bench just with 10 pounds. They exhale, so I'm laying, get the ribs down, inhale, press up. That way I'm adding a little bit of resistance instead of just body weight, but then not so much to where now they can't focus on the breathing component to it. And same thing, if someone's limited with ER, half kneeling band reach, really focusing on getting air there, or maybe they're pressing very light, but then in the workout they can go heavy. So I've been doing a lot of upper body lifts in the warm-up now. And I will even do both sides. I mean, it's still good to work on both sides, but if you see one side is very, very limited, for example, you just cannot clear out the external rotation on the left side, I would maybe do one set here, and I would do 2 sets here to get air back there. So you can